Hello again, I am Blunty. Happy day! As of yesterday, Doctor Who is finally back on our screens, and as I tweeted out about it immediately after watching the new special, which I did as soon as I woke yesterday morning, not just back on TV, but back from so badly written I found it literally unwatchable. Glued to the screen for every last second of the 55-minute runtime, pitch perfect, exactly the right mix of unserious and emotionally earnest. Was it the perfect Doctor Who episode? No, but then the first episode of A New Regeneration is so rarely near the height of any particular version that Doctor Who reaches. But I'm not going to fully review or deconstruct the episode itself today, not in this video anyway. Instead, I want to talk about the fan reactions and alleged fan reactions, and how baffling all of this sometimes is. I've got a few things to say to you. Basic stuff first. Never be cruel and never be cowardly. And if you ever are, always make amends. Hate is always foolish and love is always wise. Always try to be nice, but never fail to be kind. The Doctor has had some fantastic monologues over the years. 12 has a couple in particular I especially like, and obviously my performance can't even come close to doing justice to the delivery. But, you know, the one I open with there is a bit of a paraphrasing anyway, mashing up a couple of other times. He repeated that same refrain. But I like it. As something of a mission statement, it describes the Doctor well. But it also recognises that the Doctor, as extraordinary as they are, is also just a person. They fail, they falter, and they do not always live up to that mission statement. And that's why I like it so much, because it's about intent. It's about taking responsibility for one's own actions, and it's about how self-defeating cruelty really is. Which is why, among several other reasons, I find it so confusing that a certain type of person out there ever claims to be a fan of Doctor Who in the first place. And then go online to pretend to be shocked and horrified when the show includes messaging about inclusivity and kindness and open-heartedness and acceptance of the different and the vulnerable. There's a conflict there. Because if there is one core value of the Doctor, it is just that. Be kind. This isn't just a pretense for the framing of the video here. I am genuinely baffled and confused by people who refuse to see that, or in their supposed and claimed love of the series go so far out of their way to be the sort of horrible little toads that the Doctor would absolutely berate for their behaviour. The type of person we so most visibly see these days in our online social spaces, screaming at other people who do not fit into their small, restricted, myopic view of what a normal person is, and how anything outside of that is so unacceptable to them, so offensive in its very presence or visibility, that they lash out in hate and spite and cruelty. The type of people who follow, for one example, transgender content creators here on YouTube. Not because they want to listen to perspectives that come from a different life experience than their own, to learn or to think or to open up for some self-examination, but exclusively so they can continuously attack, berate, tear down, insult, belittle, or in general do and say whatever they can to make someone else's day worse. What is that about, even? Who are you people? After I watched the new Doctor Who special yesterday morning, I popped online, as I often do, pulled up the hashtag for the show and started scrolling through what other people were saying about the episode to see if it lined up with my impressions, or to see if I could find a different perspective on something that I'd overlooked or not thought about. I love social media for that. I hate social media for how easy it is to get yourself spoiled if you don't actively avoid it before you watch your favourite show. Good with the bad. But in any case, the vast majority seem to broadly mirror my own reaction, considering it a pretty good episode of Doctor Who. Right vibe, right mix of childish delight and emotionally earnest groundedness, a return to form and a promising start for a new era of Doctor Who under Disney's banner. But rather fascinatingly, what I did not see was the typical flood of petty resentful whining about what they would call woke stuff in the special. Oh, it's out there all right, but delightfully it was being utterly drowned out by just exponentially more positive stuff. It wasn't all universal praise, as again, it was not a perfect episode. There are things to pick apart about it on. But all the same, basically every tweet about it was positive and hopeful and joyful, and delighted that it was a pretty strong return. Looking forward to more. And to be honest with you, I was shocked that it was that overwhelmingly positive. Because we do live in an era of hate clicks and whatnot, and it's basically a given these days that anything, especially when it comes to movie or TV fiction, that has so much as one scene or one line of dialogue, or even so much as half a second of anything that recognizes that minorities exist in the world and should be loved and accepted and supported. Spider-Man fans, it's met with aggression, hate, pettiness from certain type of people. And they go out of their way to flood as much of this out as possible to try and drown out anything else going on. This new Doctor Who special featured a character who was trans, and more than that, gender non-binary trans, and was constantly using a feminine pronoun. A trans, non-binary, she, they, oh man, they're going to be apoplectic about this, I'm sure. Oh, and even more outrageously, she confronted the Doctor himself about assuming someone else's pronouns. I fully expected the hashtag to be full of the usual troglodytes having hissy fits all about it, but it was really hard to find. They were being drowned out by the overwhelming majority of kind Doctor Who fans, and so many non-binary people delighted and ecstatic to have some earnest representation on screen for them. That's really rare for those peeps. And I'll come back to the importance on representation a little bit later on a very, very specific example of why it's so very important to us all. And it's got nothing to do with gender, it's got nothing to do with sexuality, so keep watching for that, I guess. But while the little hate mongers were out there having their little predictable hissy fits about pronouns, I did actually have to deliberately search for them to find them by adding special words in addition to the hashtag search, words that we all know these people love to use. And if there was ever a golden example of how ill-fitted and how unwelcome this kind of petty hatred is in the Doctor Who fandom specifically, let the unusual lengths that I had to go to find these small, sad puddles of misery in the ocean of love and kindness from every other fan out there stand as a monument to that. Now, what I did find specific to the episode was people parroting remarkably similar takes, nearly copy-pasting in fact. But mainly, the specific objections were that Rose berated the Doctor for assuming an alien's pronouns. And that's how these people actually feel when you ask them to show kindness or think before acting. They feel attacked. They feel berated. So they were projecting that onto the Doctor. But what actually happened in the episode was the Doctor said that I'm gonna keep him safe no matter what, or something to that effect. The him being the alien question. And Rose asked, rather gently in fact, if the Doctor was assuming male pronouns for the unfamiliar alien, which the Doctor was. I mean, look at the alien. It's only vaguely humanoid in that it's bipedal and it's sentient and it has language, but beyond that, there's no familiar humanoid coding on and how it's designed as far as gender is concerned. There's no real reason to look at it and go, well, that's a girl, that's a boy, whatever. And just for the record, the actor who provided the voice for that character is a woman. But it's not that unusual for us to assume gender like that. We all do it without even thinking. I know I do. I've noticed it many times, particularly when I'm streaming a video game, for example, because I'm talking through my reactions in real time as they're happening. I'm talking about the characters we're meeting and stuff like that to a live audience. And I have often noticed myself defaulting to calling a character he or him, when in truth, at that moment, it's unclear whether that's a he or him at all. And using this moment in the Doctor Who episode to shine a light on that odd little quirk so many of us share about how we use language isn't berating, it's doing what science fiction is supposed to do. It's what science fiction is for. It's using obfuscation of the fantastic to examine the ordinary human experience. That's what science fiction is for. That's precisely what it is for. It's why it was invented, to do exactly that. And the Doctor recognizes this is quirk of how he's using language. He doesn't act offended that some mere human he just met hours ago is questioning him, the Doctor, damn it. He just nonchalantly recognizes that the assumption was unnecessary on his behalf and asks the alien for clarification. To which the alien says that they don't use gendered pronouns, and instead they use the definite article. They refer to themselves and ask other people to refer to them as the meep. The meep is going shopping. The meep is eating a human baby. The meep is going for a walk. Now, using a definite article in place of a pronoun is unusual. Not unheard of, but unusual. Except the Doctor does it too. And the Doctor recognizes that he does that. He says it out loud. He goes, oh, I do that too. Because the Doctor is not his name. It was never his name. But it is what they are called, it's how people know them and how people identify them, and as a Time Lord, their existence is gender fluid. Not only was the Doctor's last regeneration a female, but we have seen other Time Lords regenerate into other genders, both on and off screen, in prior episodes of the show, years and years ago. But this particular regeneration of the Doctor is male-presenting, so in addition to the Doctor, you'll see others use he and him, or possibly they and them, as indeed I just did in the last paragraph I read out to you. Did you even notice? Probably not, because as much as clown-ass dipshits like to make a fuss about they always being plural, what do you mean they? I only see one person. That's simply not true. And they has been a singular pronoun for literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years in the English language. Doy. It is perfectly acceptable and in fact very common to use they as a singular pronoun. I do it all the time and nobody ever notices. The second specific criticism from the anti-woke crowd spun around to the bit where Donna and Rose claimed that a male-presenting Doctor wouldn't have thought of their solution to the sci-fi predicament they were at the moment in. That being the fact that they're all full of special Time Lord energy, power, MacGuffin juice, and if they don't do something, it'll kill them. It's gonna kill them. And that solution that only a woman would think of is let it go. Let it go. Anti-woke types shat pants about this because they thought it was, again, belittling the Doctor and man-hating hyper-feminism, blah. But it's not that at all. I mean, the Doctor themselves have only just, again, become a bloke. So recently, in fact, were they a woman. Even the psychic papers still misgendering them, which was a funny little gag. But what you have to keep in mind with this exchange is twofold. On the one hand, part of the core dynamic between the Doctor and Donna is the fact that she is always taking little potshots at him. Always. It is, I imagine, one of the reasons he loves having her as a best mate, because she treats him like a mate. Not as a romantic interest, not as some all-knowing problem solver, not as some magician, not as a mysterious alien, as some of his other companions have, at least for a while, treated him. No, not Donna. She has always treated the Doctor just as a bloke. She loves him, she respects him, but she still sees his flaws, his arrogance, his tendency to try to detach himself, and she won't let him get away with it. She grounds him in a way he knows deep down he needs, and she does that by sticking a little elbow into his ribs every now and again. Because that's often how it is when you're that platonically close to someone. At least that's how it is with me and my mates, whatever their gender happens to be. It's never mean-spirited, it's never cruel, it's always intended with a smirk, or at the very least an implied smirk. My very favourite people, the people I love the most, are these people who do not let me get away with my shit. They call me on it. They'll stick the elbow in. Keep me grounded. I love them for that. So I read this exchange as simply Donna teasing the Doctor, and Rose going along with it because she is obviously her mother's kid. Secondly to that, there is the underlying truth of it all. Most men with power do have, undeniably, irrefutably, a very difficult time surrendering that power, just giving it up. Is this inherent to masculinity? Is it something to do with toxic masculinity? Doesn't really matter. It's true either way. You can see it in the world happening right now and all of history. And this is foreshadowed somewhat as we learn earlier that Donna gave away an enormous amount of money the Doctor secretly gave her to help her ensure a good life. And Donna just gave it all away. To the surprise and disbelief of the Doctor, she used that money to help other people in the subconscious drive to be more like the Doctor. She wanted to help people. The Donna who existed before she met the Doctor probably wouldn't have done that. She wouldn't have given away the money. Very unlikely. Certainly not all of it. But her time with the Doctor made her kinder. Even when she couldn't remember him, that stayed with her in her subconscious. But the Doctor never considered that money itself is power here on Earth. He just hoped it would help his friend stay safe and comfortable. He didn't think he was giving Donna anything more than a nice home and a full belly and less worries about work and being unemployed and all that sort of stuff. He wanted just her to be comfortable and safe. In fact, the Doctor cares so little about money, he doesn't carry money. There's a whole bit in the episode where he did that he borrowed the money to buy the lottery ticket that ended up winning her the money in the first place. The Doctor doesn't do money. It's not a concept for him that he deals with every single day of his life, day in, day out, just to exist. But on Earth, money is power. Donna knows that. She lives here in our class-based society. She has seen what money means and the way it can change lives. And the kindest thing you can do with power is help other people. And in this case, that means giving that power away, giving that power to someone else. Again, it's something that the Doctor is continuously confused by throughout the episode. She gave away her money? She gave it all away. What? And that is why this line is there. That is why this line works. Because he didn't understand it. He didn't think of this solution. The subtext of the cultural and heavily gendered stereotype of women being kinder and more generous and more giving and more caring than the average man is uncomfortable to think about. But it is true. And it is something we should be thinking about. That's why that line is in there. To make us think about that. But beyond those specific examples, everywhere I looked, when I found more general objections, I saw the usual parroted rhetoric, because these people share the same singular rotting brain cell and have never had an original thought of their own, and all they do is vomit up the same old repeated bilge every single time, and I'm so bored of seeing it. The claims that it is gone woke, or that it has forced diversity, you know, the type of stuff. It's just always the same. Just noise for the sake of noise, because they have nothing new or insightful or actually intend to have a real discussion around. And their points will not and cannot stand up to any kind of actual dialogue, and they know that. As I just demonstrated with the fuss about the pronoun stuff, it's garbage. They see something they don't like, they don't understand, that scares them, and they have a tantrum about it. How these people pretend to be Doctor Who fans at all is so bizarre to me, because as much as they like to imagine that being woke is something new that's happening to their entertainment that's just infested their favourite shows, nothing could be further from the truth. It's just not true. They are not fans. They didn't watch the show. They've never watched the show. Or if they have and did, they're so dull-witted they never understood the show or who the Doctor is. Example, nearly 2 decades ago now, 18 and a half decades ago, if we're to be more chronologically accurate, which I feel like we should do when talking about a show with time travel in it. So 18 and a half years ago, on the 18th of June 2005, an episode of the newly relaunched Doctor Who show following the adventures of the Ninth Doctor and Rose Tyler. In this episode, they meet up with a handsome, very masculine, confident man, manly man, Jack Harkness. Tall, handsome, broad-shouldered, the very icon of masculinity. And as masculine, manly man I want to do, he planted a big old enthusiastic smooch right on Rose's lips as he gently held her face, and then he did it again, precisely in the same way. He gently held the Doctor's face and gave him a nice little gentle smooch too. And it wasn't played for laughs. It wasn't the, look at how uncomfortable he's made the Doctor feel because a man kissed another man. No. It was just Jack. At this point in the show, it had already been established that Jack was, at the very least, bisexual. But the kisses weren't played for shock value. They weren't performative in any way. They weren't forced inclusivity or anything like that. It was just Jack being Jack, trying to be the best version of himself, inspired by the Doctor and Rose, joking about how he was better off when he was acting like a coward because he's just about to do something brave and dangerous, and he's kissing them goodbye, possibly. Jack, open and earnest, screwing up as much of his bravery as he could in a moment of fear, and demonstrating his affection for Rose and the Doctor in case he didn't survive what comes next. It was real, earnest, genuine, an act of love and kindness and gratefulness, entirely consistent with Jack and his character arc. But even that was accused of being forced, and while I don't think we were using the word woke in this context just yet, but yeah, it would have been called woke. And that was 962 weeks ago, in season 1 of the new era. The show did not suddenly recently go woke. That's entirely imagined phenomenon, utter buffoonery to suggest. The show has always been woke, or inclusive, if you like. And then the exact same thing happened again, like a whole bunch of years later, about 10 years ago now. The right-wing dipshits shat their entire pants when a married couple shared a kiss on screen. A married couple kissed each other on screen and they threw a hissy fit. The problem? Well, the married couple in question were both women, of course. And thus this simple reflection of the real world, where sometimes two women fall in love, get married and kiss occasionally, well, that was proclaimed as promoting the gay agenda. What agenda is that exactly? To be acknowledged as existing? to be seen as human, doing human things with human feelings. Yeah, that's a real nasty agenda that the gays have got there. Really? How do these people not see that they are the bad guys? How are they that delusional? And it's not even like this was sprung on the show. These two characters at this point had been on our screens as a couple for 3 years already. But as soon as the kiss was on screen, oh my God, did the nutjobs lose their absolute shit. It's absurd the way their brains... I was going to say the way their brains work, but I'm not entirely sure that's the right phrasing. The way their brains fail to work, perhaps. In 1977, 46 years ago, shortly before even I was born with my grey hair and grey beard, when Tom Baker was the face of the Doctor, he said, on screen as the Doctor, the very powerful and the very stupid have one thing in common. Instead of altering their views to fit the facts, they alter the facts to fit their views, which can be very uncomfortable if you happen to be one of the facts that needs altering. As true 46 years ago as it is today. And these nutjobs continuously try to force their agenda of hate and suppression by trying to rewrite history in their minds, imagining that shows like Doctor Who being progressive and open and diverse and inclusive is some kind of new phenomenon, a scary new force that must be stopped. It's coming to indoctrinate your kids. And by constantly inventing this fiction of a scary new enemy, they're making fools of themselves every damn day. I do not understand how they cannot see themselves. Why are they never having it's the "are we the baddies" meme moment? Surely, at some point, self-awareness kicks in a little bit. Do you know why it doesn't happen? I'll tell you why it doesn't happen at the end of this video. But let's talk about inclusivity. Inclusivity is important. On-screen representation of minorities is vital. Yes, even if the number of them we see on screen doesn't necessarily reflect the statistical distribution of these people. So let's take a look at a less scary character for these right-wingy type people. A character who's white. They're in a position of authority over other people, including over colored people. Ooh. And as far as we know, they're not gay or trans or anything. But they are disabled. They're a wheelchair user. Oh, and the oh-so-generous wackos like this chud claim to be fine. I'm fine with a scientific advisor being in a wheelchair. Oh, really? Thank you so much for your unrequired approval of a disabled person being allowed to be a scientist in your presence. So kind of you to be fine with that. Oh, but he's not done. You know he's not done. They're fine with it if it wasn't for the fact she crossed her legs on camera and nobody noticed or cared. What? What? See, this is why representation matters. This is why it's so important, so vital to have people of all walks of life or roles of life on screen. I'm undecided on that joke or not. Was it funny? Was it tacky? Please, wheelchair users, let me know how you feel about that one. My intent was to take a jab at the funny little ways that we use ableist language without even noticing, but I don't know. Did that play? Did it send? I'll leave it in the edit just in case. I think it's funny. Anyway, this is important because what we're seeing here is the kind of ignorance and misunderstanding that having good representation on screen can help fix. Not everyone in a wheelchair is paralyzed. In this case, the actor playing the part, Ruth Madeley, has spina bifida. It's something that you are born with. You have it for all of your life. And it is something that has varying degrees of severity in how it affects people and their lives. Some people with spina bifida can walk without any aids at all. Some use braces or crutches or walkers or wheelchairs. It can include partial to severe loss of feeling and muscle strength in the legs. Google it if you want to know more. But some people have never met or spoken to someone with a physical disability, and it shows in this kind of ignorance that we saw in that tweet. I personally know someone who does need to use a wheelchair, but can also stand and walk, just not for very long periods of time. And they were screamed at, attacked and abused and physically threatened by someone, a stranger, because of this exact type of ignorance. So they got out of their car, having gone to the shops for groceries. They had parked in a disabled spot. And as they got out of their car, intending to walk to the back and get out their wheelchair, they were attacked by a Karen type who stormed up to them and just unleashed. They proceeded to scream abuse at them for parking in a disabled spot when they could clearly walk just fine. It was really upsetting. Like when they told me the story, they were in tears, just rolling down their face. And so was I, because, I'm a human with empathy. Not everyone who needs a wheelchair is paralyzed. The reason nobody involved in making this television show noticed or cared that someone in a wheelchair crossed their legs on screen is because that is normal behavior for at least some people in wheelchairs. And this is why representation matters. Not just so people who exist as a minority in a population can see themselves reflected in their favorite fictional worlds, to know that they have a place there in that world they love so much, that they're connected to emotionally, that their simple existence is recognized. The representation on screen matters so other people can see us too. Because hate is spawned from ignorance. I think I've very clearly just demonstrated that, right? And the only cure for it is knowledge. That's how you fix ignorance. You teach. Because ignorance is not stupidity, it's just lack of knowledge. So you give someone knowledge. All the ignorance goes away. If you show people the reality of the world around them, how many different kinds of people are out there, and how human we all really are, then the kinds of ignorance that spawned this ridiculous reaction to a person in a wheelchair crossing their legs will become rarer and rarer, and the world might just stand a chance of becoming kinder. So the big mistake that the more aggressive right-winger types keep making is, while they're doing everything they can to diminish other people, to suppress knowledge of them, banning books, screaming about TV shows with queer people in them, trying to win political clout to legally oppress the minorities they don't understand or like, the other side isn't fighting the same war. The goal of the left is not obliteration of the enemy. It's creating a better world for everyone. Everyone. In the Doctor's words which ring in the ears of any true and honest fan, I'm not trying to win. I'm not doing this because I want to beat someone, or because I hate someone, or because I want to blame someone. It's not because it's fun. God knows it's not because it's easy. It's not even because it works, because it hardly ever does. I do what I do because it's right. Because it's decent, and above all, it's kind. It's just that. It's kind. If I run away today, good people will die. If I stand and fight, some of them might live. Maybe not many, maybe not for long. Hey, maybe there's no point to any of this at all, but it's the best I can do. So I'm going to do it. And I will stand here doing it until it kills me. Sorry, broke up there a little bit trying to read that, because I'm emotionally invested in that particular speech. It wells me up every time. So even just reading it out, even not trying to perform it, but whew, a lot of the Doctor's speeches do that to me. Because another one of the ways that I am different from normal people is autism. And in my particular recipe of autism, it ramps up the empathy a little bit. So I find it very hard to regulate my emotions sometimes. And that was an example of that. I couldn't regulate how that speech touched me, so I couldn't read it without breaking up a little bit. But yeah, representation matters. Kindness matters. And it's not about winning. It's about making a kinder world. And we, just like the Doctor, don't always get it right. I know I certainly aren't always as kind as I should be. The point is, when I'm not kind, I do feel crappy about it, and I will try and fix it if I can. I am far from having a spotless record of kindness. I try. But, I am, of course, preaching to the choir at this point, because they do not want to listen. They do not want to have this conversation. They don't want to think about their actions. They don't have the patience or will for it. They have already decided what they think my position is, what my argument is, what I'm going to say in this video, and they have long ago left this video and plopped whatever think-free parroted comment they were always going to leave in the first place, because they don't want to think. And that is what depresses me most about all of this. And as useless as hate is, I do truly hate how hard it is just to have people listen. Because that's the point. listen. Sit down and do what you're always supposed to do. Talk. And that is another Doctor Who speech that I cannot get through without utterly breaking down. Holy shit. So anyway, thank you to those of you who have watched this entire long-ass, rambly video full of pretty raw takes. I appreciate your time and hopefully thoughtfulness. And I guess that the best thing I can hope for in this video, even though I know I'm not reaching many other people whose minds I want to crack open just a little bit so they listen, maybe some of the stuff I said, in the way I said it, in the way I phrased it, in the way I constructed it, maybe that will be useful to some of you out there when you next try to talk and have someone listen. That's about as best as I can hope for any of this, I suppose. So, thank you for watching. I am Bloody. I'll catch you next time. Thank you as always to the patrons up above there, whose kindness is represented by a little bit of money, power. They're giving some of their power to me to help me. Thank you for that. Oh boy.